I can't hear either.
What was that? Hey, hi everybody. Welcome. Can you guys hear?
No.
Garrett and the guests can't hear, so it's all on me right now. Welcome to Silicon Slup Show. We are live. We are ready to go. We have Jonas Harmer here. He is the head of business development at Gigg. You might know him better as a 3-time American Ninja Warrior. He's a competitive gamer, and you might know him from his podcast, Safely to the Moon, which we're going to get into. Jonas, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Hey, what happened with Safemoon?
That's a loaded question. A lot happened with Safemoon. The CEO is now in jail. The company has filed for bankruptcy. They've been liquidated and dissolved. And it was kind of a series of unfortunate events. So that's why I started the podcast. It's my former boss, and we're just telling our stories. It was a crazy time. A lot of wild things happened. A lot of things happened that we couldn't talk about because of NDAs. And now that everything's been dissolved, those are out the window. So yeah, a lot happened, but kind of to sum it up, misappropriation of customer funds. So the SEC has him on wire fraud, conspiracy to money laundering.
And is this the CEO?
Yeah.
So how did you get to Safemoon?
So I was an early investor. I've been involved in cryptocurrency for a while, and kind of a wild story. I was pretty interested in Safemoon. It was a novel concept, and they grew really fast. And then my wife and I bought a house in Utah. We were living in Arizona at the time. We were moving to American Fork, and at the 2 weeks after we closed on our home, Safemoon announced they were moving their headquarters from London to Pleasant Grove, Utah. I thought, what are the odds? And
yeah, what are the odds? What was the purpose of that?
I guess Utah has a really friendly business. I mean, we know this. It's good for businesses, and I guess in crypto,
good for fraudulent
in particular
businesses.
It doesn't look great on us now, but it was good for me because I was a fan of the company, and they moved their headquarters 5 minutes from my house. And so Scott Paul, he knew John Crony, and so he ended up getting me. Of course,
it was Scott.
Yeah, of course it was Scott. So he got me an interview. I got the job, and it was a wild 10 months that I worked there.
So what was the pitch? Like when you go in for the interview, what were they pitching you? Because I remember when crypto was like a thing, and now it's not anymore?
It still is.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I won't bet. Well, we'll get into a crypto argument, I'm sure. But before we do that, remember when it was at its height? And
Yep.
I was getting Safemoon mentions on Twitter like constantly. That guy, the CEO guy, was constantly hitting like, "We're building out of." I'm like, "Who is this? What is Safemoon?" And I could never get my handle around it. So that's like the extent of my knowledge of this story, really. What was their pitch to you that they were going to do? What did Safemoon do?
So the pitch to me was actually wild. The pitch to everyone was pretty simple. So Safemoon was a cryptocurrency, and the premise of it is that really its selling point, besides the name, because the name was kind of fun, takes you safely to the moon, right? The idea is with every transaction of the Safemoon cryptocurrency, there's a 10% tax. Half of it gets redistributed to all the other holders. So just by holding Safemoon, it's passive income because you're always getting more from other people buying and selling. The other half goes to the liquidity pool. So that way there's a growing liquidity pool, there's stable price movement. And so that was kind of novel at the time, and that's why it took off. So that was the pitch just to regular people. The pitch to me, I assumed when I was going in for a job interview that I would just be, because I do sales, and they had just opened up an exchange. So I thought I would just be selling, which I ended up doing, just listings on the exchange, marketing packages. But when I sat down with John, he goes into, we're also building a point of sale system so businesses can accept crypto. We're building an NFT marketplace. We're building a centralized exchange, so there's fiat on and off ramps. We're putting windmills in the Gambia with nanotechnology.
Wait, that sounds way different than the other ones.
Oh, it gets crazier. We're yeeting satellites into space. We're going to be a telecom competitor. Crazy stuff. And me, I'm a little naive, and Safemoon had at the time, it was a multi-billion-dollar market cap. So I'm like, if this guy is even 10% right, this will be crazy. So I'm in. None of that ended up happening. but there was big dreams. So really all I ended up doing the whole time was I was just selling marketing packages and listings for other cryptocurrencies to be listed on the Safemoon exchange and app.
What were those 10 months like?
It was crazy. I mean, during those 10 months, our CEO sued his mom. Our COO hired his girlfriend to be head of HR. Then he hired his friend to be our CFO. 2 months later, the CFO calls me and asks me to explain to her how we make money as a company.
Yeah.
So I'm having to give our CFO a crash course on our financials. I saw probably 10 people come and get fired or quit. A lot of turnover. It was a wild ride. I mean, part of what kept me there was I had so many of these stories. I'd tell friends, I'd be like, dude, you would not believe what just happened at work today. And eventually my buddies were like, you need to write a book. And so I started keeping a list of all these stories, but I wasn't going to write a book because this guy sued his own mother. What's going to stop him from suing me, you know? So it wasn't until he was behind bars where I figured, okay, you know, now I can come and share these wild stories. So
wait, why did he sue his mom?
Oh, so he invested money, turned out to not be his money. It was customer funds again.
So the old Sam Bankman-Fried playbook?
Very similar, actually.
Yeah.
Just on a little bit of a smaller scale. So he invested money into his mom's company because his mom owned a company that had strategic investments in Africa, the Gambia specifically, and they were at odds. And so he didn't think that his mom was using the investment money properly, and his mom didn't like how he was using his investment as marketing hype for Safemoon, and it just escalated, and eventually he sued her, and yeah, it's kind of a crazy time.
I can't believe it didn't work out.
Imagine suing your mom. I would love that, actually.
Windmills in Gambia.
Get her under oath. Why'd you do this when I was 12?
Yeah, that's an awkward Thanksgiving. Really
I'll say.
What were some crazy office? How often were people in the office? How often were people doing literally anything at this company?
So
it seems like FTX, all they were doing was snorting Adderall and having sex with each other.
Honestly, that was the other
that
crazy
happening?
thing. Not that I was aware of. Very possible. We have this huge office space here in the heart of Silicon Slopes. It was a nice building just off the Pleasant Grove exit. We had half of an entire floor to ourselves. So, of course, I don't know. I mean, they were spending tons of money on rent. And John always claimed that we had 100 employees. I only met 7.
Oh, boy.
And of those 7, really only 3 or 4 of us actually came into the office. So we had a 40-person office that was always empty, but we still painted every single wall neon green for Safemoon's colors. We had a Safemoon mural that was commissioned for $10,000 to be painted on one of our walls. And it was kind of weird because I would walk in every day. I'd come to work every morning. My boss, Hayden, super cool guy, we felt like we were our own company because it would be mostly just me and him. We'd come into the office at 9. It was empty. It was just weird. All these empty chairs and office spaces. We had our own little room. We'd do our work. We'd get other cryptocurrencies on our exchange. We'd sell marketing packages. Every once in a while, we'd have to work with our marketing team, which was based in London. They didn't do a whole lot. Crazy story, actually. While I was working at Safemoon, I sold them Gigg, where I currently work. So I sold them our marketing software because I said, hey, guys, we really need this. We weren't doing any marketing, even though we had a marketing team. I said this would really help. It was a long process, but I sold them on it. We paid for it, and then our marketing team never used it. So that was just kind of a good example of what went on. By what went on, nothing went on. So it was really just me and Hayden doing our own thing, trying to make things work,
Shout out to Hayden.
Shout out to Hayden. He's a good guy. He's my co-host.
Well done, dude.
Yeah.
Hey, I know this might be a weird question, but how did you get paid? Was it money?
Yeah, it was money. It was. I wanted to be paid in Bitcoin. I did not want to be paid in Safemoon because obvious reasons. Even when I was working there and drinking the Kool-Aid, I still, there was red flags from day one. But no, I was paid in real money. So I had a little salary, and then most of it was commission. So when I would sell a marketing package, I would get a small percentage of that. And eventually they stopped paying me, which is a whole other story, which is a big reason why I left.
It usually happens.
Yeah, but I do feel bad to this day because my salary, I was probably paid, I assume, customer funds. I mean, our only real source of revenue was what Hayden and I did. There were some other weird sources of revenue. We kind of sold merch. We kind of had deals with some exchanges where if they listed Safemoon, they would pay us percentage of the volume. Didn't really understand most of it, but yeah, they paid me in real dollars, at least for the first 9 months.
And then month 10 is where it all
Yeah,
fell apart.
it was really bad. I was paid my commissions quarterly. It was supposed to be biweekly. They changed it to quarterly, so I was, okay, whatever. And my Q3 commission check was late. And so I asked, hey, Hayden, you know what's going on? He said, I have no idea. So Hayden asked, and we didn't hear back. Again, it's just us in an empty office building. So we had to send our
A
request.
really nice office building.
Very nice office building. John was always traveling. So he was either in London or in the Maldives or doing who knows what.
The Maldives?
Yeah.
That should have been a giveaway.
That was another red flag.
You don't do anything appropriate in the Maldives.
Or he was in Malta. So anyways, finally, about a month, my commission paycheck is late, a month late. And again, that's the vast majority of my pay. So I'm, kind of nervous. Hey, where is this thing? Our COO comes into the office and he says, hey, good news. Your commission check is coming. We had to adjust your commission structure a little bit. And I'm like, what do you mean adjust maybe from now on, you can't retroactively. He's like, no, our new CFO has this thing. And so he showed me the new calculator, and basically my pay was half of what it would have been. And so we were very much at odds. I said, I'm not coming back into this office and doing another piece of work until you pay me what you owe me. And so we were kind of at a standoff for a month, and then I quit.
So-
Wow.
You're a young, optimistic dude. Obviously, you're in sales and you've got that can-do attitude. So, having gone through this, how does that change your psyche, and how much faith did you lose in humanity?
A great question, because to your point, I always wanted to look on the bright. I always wanted to believe, hey, it's a legitimate thing. I knew that we had terrible leadership, and I knew there was a terribly run company, but I wanted to believe they were trying to do the right thing, and I wanted to believe we could make a difference. And so it actually, I took a big break from everything crypto once I quit. I was day trading. I was always on Twitter. I took a long break just because I was kind of burned out, and I had been burned personally. And it was tough. And the sad thing is, and we talk about this in our podcast, the majority of that space is fraud. It's
What
the
would
Wild
you,
West.
99%? Or
Probably 95%.
95. Wow.
Yeah.
That's better than I thought.
Yeah.
Things
It's-
are looking up.
What's sad too is that the underlying technology, so blockchain technology, is really cool.
Right.
Having a decentralized distributed ledger, really cool. The problem is that applying that to a currency or financial model is the easiest application of it, and it's also the Wild West. There's not a lot of regulation. It's really easy to scam and steal, and so I believe blockchain tech is here to stay, but crypto gives it a bad name, and so that hinders its progress. We really should be using it for things like IDs or the deeds or titles to your house or car.
Voting, smart
Voting.
contracts,
Yeah.
things like that. All that's great.
But its progress has really been hindered because of what's gone on in crypto.
How did things go south at Safemoon? I mean, at what point did things just fall apart? Because this guy's now in jail,
He's in jail,
right? Yeah.
facing a lot of years. Really, I mean, and I know a lot more now. When the court documents came out, because we always knew there was shady stuff going on. We figured, hey, this guy might get arrested one day, but we didn't know the extent. So when the court documents came out, I was reading them like a novel, and every page I was like, wow, this is crazy. I had no idea. And so really things went south from the very beginning, it turns out, because so John was brought on to be the CEO. He had no business experience. It was just kind of a group of friends that had started this fun little cryptocurrency project. It blew up, went parabolic. So now you have a bunch of inexperienced guys looking at hundreds of millions of dollars basically under management. And it makes sense now why they said, well, maybe we could just tap into that. Maybe we should just use it. They didn't really know what they were doing. John's moral compass was clearly off. And so really from the very beginning, it went south once they had all this money and they started using it. And
Well, not to defend it, but also, like, is it it's probably pretty ambiguous whether or not at that time. I mean, it's very clear
Oh,
now.
100%.
But it's probably pretty ambiguous what you can do with, because let's be honest, banks do this. You put money in a bank and they invest it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I don't really understand how that's different.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're kind of getting a picture of it, right? But like if I put $10,000 in the bank, that $10,000 was immediately vested in the market or some fund or whatever the heck, and it's gone. Like that's my money, or it's not. It's the bank's money. This is the part that I never fully. I don't really
Uh-huh.
understand it with SBF either. I don't. I get that it's like you probably shouldn't do that, but I don't think the bank should be allowed to do that. So what is the law?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there still is a lot of gray area, and so I believe I'm with you on that. It is tough. The problem is there's two problems. One
Safemoon
is
wasn't a bank.
wasn't a bank, and it's also essentially they were treating it like an unregistered security.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the issue lies, and that's where a lot of ongoing court cases, the SEC has cases against Ripple, XRP, Coinbase, Binance just paid a $4 million fine. That was money laundering, but there's still a lot of gray area and regulation. But if you have an asset and people are expecting profit from the work of others, that's a security. And so that's one problem. The other problem is that Safemoon told its users that the liquidity pool was locked and they wouldn't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So they lied.
Yeah.
That was another big problem. They said, hey, we're not going to touch the liquidity pool. And its purpose was not for business purposes, because again, that's more like investing in a business.
Mm-hmm.
It's the liquidity pool's purpose is to allow people to trade in and out. It's its own market maker, essentially. You don't have to wait for someone to be wanting to sell their Safemoon. You can just trade with a liquidity pool. And part of Safemoon's pitch was, hey, this liquidity pool is always growing because each transaction has a 5% tax that goes into it. And so when they were taking it out to buy themselves McLarens and $2 million mansions and flying on private jets across the world, that's where it was, kind of twofold.
Yeah,
Some
can't do
issues.
that.
That's
Yeah.
not gray.
Not great.
Maldives and Lamborghinis and private jets, that's not a gray area. That's embezzlement.
Yeah.
Does part of you feel bad for him, like the inexperience, the getting caught up in like, oh, the American dollar's going away next year, right? Who's that? Balaji said he's like, in 90 days the Fed will no longer be able to print. Can't remember what it was, but it's like this crazy. I'm all, what?
Yeah.
The whole system's dissolving in 90 days. Obviously, didn't happen. So you get like caught up in that hype, and you don't know. He's young. I assume this dude's pretty young.
He's 28.
Yeah. So you don't really know. You've never run a business before. You're seeing tons of money. This is not an excuse. So don't buy private jets, $1 billion homes, go to the Maldives, and pretend like that's fine. But
No, I do feel
part
bad
of me
for
feels
him.
bad. Yeah, part of me feels bad. Like he almost got conned in a way into thinking like, hey, this is a legitimate thing that you could do.
Well, I believe he conned himself too. I think he justified it in his head because I know him pretty well. I worked pretty close with him. He's not an evil guy. He did a lot of things that bugged me, but genuinely, he's a nice dude. He had a lot of friends and a good guy. His moral compass was off. He was a little delusional, and I think he conned himself and he tricked himself into thinking. So I do feel bad for him. I do think he should go to jail. I don't think he should spend forever in there, but I also don't think he should ever run a business again, ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel bad. He does deserve jail time, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the court decides. He doesn't even have a date set yet.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of crypto is currently? Because now it's kind of marred by SBF obviously being the biggest one, but even Binance and their CEO going down, Safemoon. There's probably millions of stories I don't even know. How do you recover from this?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think all of this really helps. It sets an example for others. So I think this will help shake out the bad actors in crypto. And even there were collapses like last year, if you remember what happened to Terra, to Luna, where there was a multi-billion-dollar death spiral collapse of a cryptocurrency.
Is that the one that was tied to the US dollar?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tied to
Yeah.
the US dollar. So, but really long term, these things are good because there's been a lot of problems. A lot of people were over leveraged. and they were wiped out. So now people, if they've learned a lesson, hey, don't be over leveraged in a speculative asset. A lot of people were scamming. Now they've been hit with fines or in jail. So lesson learned, don't scam. Do legitimate. I mean, Bitcoin's here to stay, and there's other really big ones.
Well, Bitcoin's really, it seems like that is the most legit of all the cryptocurrencies, just given that.
And it's the only one that's truly decentralized. There's no CEO of Bitcoin. The guy that created it he went by an alias, and no one knows who he is or who he was or where he is if he's still alive.
Right.
It just kind of runs itself. There's a Bitcoin Foundation, and there's still developers that can do things if there's consensus, but it really is the only truly decentralized cryptocurrency. It's funny though, because Bitcoin's tech is pretty ancient at this point. Its transactions per second are really low. Its throughput and latency are low. We have way more efficient cryptocurrencies, but they're also more centralized. So I think Bitcoin will always live as a store of value just because of supply and demand and scarcity. It'll never be used as a cryptocurrency just because it's not efficient that way, unless, and this is more nuanced, unless we go through the Lightning Network, which is kind of a layer on top of the Bitcoin network. But yeah, I believe crypto is here to stay. And especially as people see, I don't think the dollar's going away in 90 days, but it's part of what got me into crypto in the first place was inflation, seeing the government print money and me looking at my bank account and realizing my purchasing power is going down every day. I didn't like that. I wanted to hedge against it. And governments will always do that. They always want control. They're even talking now about creating CBDCs, central bank digital currencies.
Terrible idea.
Scares a lot of people because that's
terrible.
That's, the opposite of what crypto should be. And so and they can't control Bitcoin as much as they would like to. So it's here to stay. I think its adoption has probably been slowed, and blockchain adoption in general has been slowed, and maybe progress of other more innovative cryptocurrencies has probably been slowed. But I think overall it's good because people know if you do something wrong, it's not the Wild West as much anymore. You will get caught. There is regulation coming. And we've already seen that as regulation has come in, now we have a Bitcoin ETF. That wasn't going to happen 2 years. That was going to happen 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Now we have a better understanding of what do we do with this digital currency thing. Okay, now we can let institutional money come in, which is net positive.
Why do you think dudes love it so much?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Like, it's a dude thing.
A lot of
'Cause we're
people talk
dumb.
about it. Like, we need more women in crypto, and I don't know. They can get in. That's a great question. I have no idea.
No, like dudes, like, yeah, the government's failing, and we get like our little like prepper attitudes, like like the masculine instinct, like, oh, and there's something about like we're gonna create a new currency or a new. I don't know. It's really interesting.
It is.
It's a very dude centric. Tech is as well, but not to the extent it seems like that crypto is.
Yeah, it's funny too because I've made a lot of friends just online, just other dudes in other parts of the world that are pretty similar to me, and we just happen to get into cryptocurrency and happen to meet. I don't know. It's just kind of it'd be an interesting case study.
There's not a lot of like 68-year-old dudes though that give too many damns about it, right? Because they've seen this in various versions come and go over the years, and it is fun to watch the people get bopped on the head and go to jail for a long time or pay big fines. It's kind of a natural evolution of a new market and a new technology, and it won't be the last one, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be other stuff where the first 4 or 5 years are just wrought with danger and people go to jail, and then it kind of stabilizes.
I mean, look to your point, look at AI. AI is a lot of crypto people left crypto to go to AI because that's the new thing. And it's also, we're in a weird spot with that too, because there's been people that take music artists' voices and sounds and they're creating new music for them.
There's a lot of fraud, a lot of scamming in AI.
There's fake commercials or ads with Joe Rogan saying, hey, I endorse this project. He never said that. It's AI. It's a deep fake. So that's another.
People need to be careful, I think, too. Don't you think like all of this, like we're now an AI company, even that could be like a little bit, that's a gray area. Like, what do you mean you're an AI company? Like,
yeah,
I guess that's a marketing thing. So I'm not sure that you get too hit for that, but yeah, everybody's an AI. I mean, Silicon Slopes is an AI nonprofit now, of course.
Oh,
we have a Chat GPT account.
news to me.
Well,
What are we doing here then? We
the
could just fake
telephone would
this.
be news to you.
So we could actually look better with AI?
You want it.
That's what I thought.
put you in a system and everyone would hate it.
Okay. In true like positive fashion, which you're clearly a positive person, you sold Safemoon Gigg software. And as head of business development for Gigg, what are your day-to-day responsibilities? But first, what's a primer? What does Gigg do?
So Gigg does top of funnel marketing. So we have our own proprietary software. We have different pieces of software. We have our own services. Part of what we do is we manage social media. We're really big on organic marketing. And our goal is we want your customers to sell for you. We want your customers to do the marketing for you. We have different ways to incentivize that. We're big on user-generated content, UGC. And so we have different tools and strategies to help businesses really help their top of funnel.
What's a good example of a company or a brand that does that well?
So I'll tell you my favorite example. We did a campaign for Michael Bublé. He had a partnership with Dancing with the Stars. They were doing a Michael Bublé night, and they wanted to market that creatively. So we got with them, and we said, here's what we'll do. Let's have Michael Bublé's biggest fans do the marketing for him. So we set up a campaign where he put out a video on social media saying, hey, guys, if you don't know by now, we're doing a Dancing with the Stars Michael Bublé night, and I want to send some of you guys there front row seats. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a competition. I want you to choreograph a dance routine to my single, Higher, and submit it, get people to vote. The winner gets to come on. And so our software handled that whole process. So we kind of gamify marketing. So we handled the content submissions from his fans. We handled voting rounds. We tracked all the data and analytics, where people were coming from, who they were sharing. And it went viral. And what our goal always is Michael, he did a great job posting about it and reminding people, but it was really his fans that they did the heavy lifting. So they were creating content. They were sharing it. They were saying, hey, go vote for me. While saying vote for me, they were directing people back to the website where they learned, hey, Michael Bublé is doing a Dancing with the Stars night. And we actually ended up getting nominated for a Webby Award for that marketing campaign.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm on your site. It's actually really cool.
It is cool. It's fun.
But the end result from all of that, from a business perspective, was increase in revenue for both Michael Bublé and Dancing with the Stars. And then on a fun level, like everybody that interacted, a couple of them got to go.
Yeah, and we got great feedback, which is what we love. Is people were saying, "Thanks so much for doing this. This was fun. I loved watching other people's submissions." Or, "Thanks for picking real people for real winners." You know, people loved just watching and seeing what was going on. They loved seeing Michael react to submissions that came in. It's a fun experience, and that's what we want. Too much of marketing is salesy, and I know that because I have a sales background, and you never want to come across as salesy, and too many businesses do. And the way you get around that is just by being organic. Let your best customers sell for you.
Gigg used to be something to do with music, right?
Yeah. So Gigg has actually gone through a few iterations and pivots. Initially, Gigg started strictly in the music space. And so it was a way to get artists and musicians to get the word out about their new single or their tour. And it ended up working so well that we realized, hey, we can replicate this with other businesses and industries. So we've expanded since.
That's cool. It's Scott Warner.
Mm-hmm.
He's been working on Gigg for a long time. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I love it. Yeah. I remember this was like you said, it's gone through a few iterations, and it was really heavy in the music industry for a while, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
So what types of customers do you guys focus on? Is it mid-market? Are these big accounts, small? Where's your sweet spot?
Yeah, mostly mid-market, direct-to-consumer product companies, especially because we do a lot more now, more so recently than we did earlier, with actual social media management. That's one thing we've been focusing on. It's one thing we learned really over this past year is we know so much about social media and we have so many tools to help. Hey, why don't we just run it for you? And so we started doing that, and it's been awesome.
You guys should run Silicon Slopes' social media. I want to be a client now, don't you?
We'll do it.
Yeah.
Currently, we have this guy who doesn't even know the passwords.
Yep. That is 100%.
We don't
true.
even know how to log in.
That's a first step. Yeah, we can help with that.
I genuinely think if you asked either of us to log into Silicon Slopes' social media accounts, we could not do it.
No, and there's proof of that because I send one tweet a year, and it's the opening day of baseball, and I say happy opening day. But each year I have to ask somebody how to do it. That's the depth of
that was like grim. That like felt grim for some
No,
reason.
we definitely could help. I was looking at your social
You
media.
could
I
probably
actually
help.
got depressed when you said that. Like at the end of you saying that, I got super depressed.
Well, when I asked you, you didn't know, so I have to go to like a second layer just to send one tweet. So yeah, we could probably use a bit of help.
One thing we're big on is calls to action. So, for example, I saw you guys posted that I'm coming on, which was awesome. I reshared it. One thing we would recommend is every time you have a guest, put out a call to action. So for their followers, hey, what questions do you want us to ask Brandon Fugel when he comes on? Put that out to the Skinwalker Ranch community, Then you get all these crazy alien questions coming in. Or even for me, hey, what questions do you want to ask Jonas when he comes on Silicon Slope? Just to get people engaged, to start commenting, to be more involved.
So you guys, for some clients, will take over their entire social media and even like do the posting for them. And all
Yeah,
that stuff.
we'll do the posting. We'll do content creation. We'll do calendar, everything.
Cool. Yeah, let's talk afterwards.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Absolutely. The whole thing's baffling to me. So
Garrett, tell us, Jonas. We're gonna do a couple news stories here, so we want your
Cool.
take on them.
Okay.
Tell us. Our Garrett is our newsman, our intrepid reporter.
I don't know how that happened. I guess I'm the only one that fills out the Google Doc. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Salt Lake City mayor outlines the big future for Main Street family and families in the annual report. Couple of quick facts. Utah's capital is now more populated than it's ever been. No signs of slowing on that. There's talk of Olympics coming. And the mayor, Aaron Mendenhall, believes the city is poised for another major boost. So you guys live in Utah County and you go to Salt Lake City for what reasons?
Jazz games, sushi. Are the big ones for me.
Just jazz games.
Jazz
I'll be
games.
there tonight.
There you go.
Hey, that's a good game tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Sixers.
fun.
So it is obviously the capital city. There's been a lot of talk of possibly the Jazz moving. So it's a constant moving target. So they're worried about walkability and affordability, keeping the Jazz in Salt Lake City, tackling homelessness, establishing a new park, water conservation, and upgrading various neighborhoods. Would you want to be the mayor of Salt Lake City, either one of you,
No.
based on like that?
Would I have to drive there every day?
Well, you'd have to live in the city, I would
Probably live
imagine.
there.
Oh yeah, then no.
No.
By the way, I really like Erin Mendenhall. I think she's an incredible leader. And she's been an incredible mayor. I was excited when she got reelected. She's been a good friend to Silicon Slopes and the tech community, and trying to build, Salt Lake City into more and more of a tech hub. I think all of that is great. I do really like Salt Lake City. I got in trouble recently on Twitter. I actually know how to use my own Twitter account.
Nice.
I got trouble on Twitter saying that Utah County is better than Salt Lake County, and it got this Tribune reporter was like, what is he talking about? And everyone was taking like super serious. It's literally 10 minutes. Like the difference are minimal.
Uh-huh.
It's the craziest thing ever that Utah County and Salt Lake County for some reason thinks Utah County is a different state, a different country.
Yep.
It's a different thing. It's like, no, we're just like 5 minutes south.
Well,
Hey.
a lot of when you say Utah County, most people think of BYU, UVU. So I have to clarify sometimes. I'll tell people, yeah, I live in Utah County. They're like, oh, gross. I'm like, no. Like I'm north of Provo. Like, oh, cool. Okay, Lehigh. That's awesome.
By the way, Provo is incredible.
Provo's
I love
pretty damn
Provo.
good.
Provo's kind of cool. I don't know. It's kind of a big parking lot, I feel like.
Yeah,
A lot
that's
of
what I like about
a
it.
lot of college kids, a lot of I don't know.
Yeah, Salt Lake City's got a lot of positive attributes, but they've definitely got some struggles, right? For a long, long time, it was kind of a black hole on like the Silicon Slopes map. There wasn't a lot of companies growing or scaling there, and it's always been a little bit of a different environment with like high rises and if you work in downtown Salt Lake but you live in Pleasant Grove, it's a bit of a commute, and it takes a while to kind of navigate the downtown. And I did work for Salt Lake City a long time ago with economic development, and they think quite differently than the mayor of Draper or Provo
Mm-hmm.
or Linden. So it is a fun thing to watch the politics and the different cultures clash, but I think, Aaron Mendenhall's well versed in all of that. She was on the city council for a long time before. It's a unique skill set to have to navigate all of those opinions. You know, there's one oil refinery in, Salt Lake City proper. And then you've got the LDS Church, right? It's like having the Vatican equivalent. I really enjoyed watching the head butt every once in a while, but ultimately they usually would come to a consensus. But it is a little blue dot surrounded by red, and I think they have their own unique challenges, and wish them the best of luck. I'm not entirely sure the Jazz will be there in 10 years.
Well, I don't want to say anything that would get me into more. Who cares? They're not going to be there. What are we talking about? Unless like something dramatically different, unless a ton of land opens up in Salt Lake City, where you'd probably need about 50 to 75 acres, because you need the Jazz, you need the NHL team, and you need the Major League Baseball team, all in the same district. There needs to be a sports and entertainment district. You should be able to go to all these games. Like if you go to Atlanta, you go to a Braves game. Like that is like much more than a Braves game.
Yeah.
That's a whole thing. And what Salt Lake City doesn't have going for it is there's a place about 15 minutes south
Yep.
where there's just tons of acreage, and it used to be a prison. And it's like, why wouldn't we just put all of this here, and we get to design it exactly how we want?
And it's in between two populated counties.
There are some downsides to that. I mean, the Utah Jazz are synonymous with Salt Lake City. They've been there. They played it. Originally, they were playing half their games in Las Vegas, half their games in Salt Lake City.
I didn't know that.
And so, yeah, but strong history, Delta Center, all that type of stuff. But you can't turn where they currently are into like an entertainment and sports district, right? It's just there's like a Fidelity Investments across the street.
Yeah. Yep. Because this change to like having 5 or 6 things all in the same spot and really monetizing the hell out of 50 acres is a fairly recent phenomenon with sports in the last 10 or 15
Well, if
years.
you look at Mark Cuban, who was the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, he sold, and he was recently asked on Twitter, like, hey, why did you sell the Dallas Mavericks? He says, because it's all about real estate now. It's all about real estate and entertainment, and I'm not good at that. Like, that is where sports are going. That is like, and these owners, I imagine, want to own all of those things.
Yep.
Around the team as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
One problem that I think we have, and to answer your original question, why I would not want to be mayor of Salt Lake, is we talk a lot about growth, and it's kind of cool. Hey, we're getting new sports teams and more people are coming in, but I don't think any of us, well, most of us really don't want it. I don't know if you talk to people, like, I don't want Brighton to keep getting more crowded. I can't even go there on a Saturday. I don't want I-15 to keep getting more backed up. And so there's a thing now, I'm sure you guys are well aware, people like on social media, Utahns say, hey, Utah's a terrible place. Don't come here.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people to move here. So it's like, it puts us in a weird spot because it's cool that we're growing. It's cool that we're such a great community, especially in tech and entrepreneurship and startups, and Salt Lake's being put on the map. But also, I don't know if a lot of us really want it to be.
I don't think any of us who love Utah want it. I think the challenge is it's coming whether we want it or not. And that I think is the difficulty for like our politicians is like, how do you manage this growth? How do you make sure it's not San Francisco 30 years ago or that whole area, Silicon Valley area? How do you like not screw it up? Because that was paradise. And now go walk downtown San Francisco.
Pass.
Oh, yeah. I grew up there. And even in my lifetime, San Francisco used to be so cool.
Paradise.
We'd
One
go
of the
there on the
greatest
weekends.
American cities.
It was a fun spot. And now you can't go there without getting your car broken into 4 times. It's kind of scary.
That is the challenge for our leaders is like, we are growing. A lot of it internally. There is some moving here, obviously. But how do you do it in a way where you don't make the mistakes of literally everyone else who's done this? I mean, even Austin's way different now. You go to Austin, I mean, I don't know if Miami has changed that much since people have come there. That's a relatively new thing.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do this without it destroy. And by the way, like you kind of price everybody out. Like if you don't work in tech or in whatever the industry is in that area, then you can't afford to live there.
Yeah. Well, I should probably get on social media a little bit more because I thought I was kind of the solo NIMBY, not in my backyard, but it sounds like there's others that.
There's a lot.
Well, that's good. Yeah. Utah sucks. I'd never want to live here if I didn't have to.
Yeah, you live in Salt Lake County, so it legitimately does suck for you.
All right. If I were to say you have blood on your hands, who would I be talking to or referencing?
Definitely you.
Correct.
Would be someone I would immediately think of. And then I would think of Mark Zuckerberg.
You have blood on your hands. Senator Lindsey Graham, Republican of South Carolina, told the executives during a hearing of the Senate Judiciary Committee, eliciting applause from a packed audience that included many holding pictures of children. And then they asked Zuckerberg to get up, and he did an about-face and apologized.
That was humiliating.
There he is.
Did you see that? Who was it? Was it Hawley, Senator Hawley, Josh Hawley, who asked him to stand up? And he didn't really apologize, but man, that has got to be so intense to look back and like there's all these kids. I imagine they took their own lives.
Yeah.
Is that and you know
Most
the
of it, yeah.
parents and everything, like, hey, social media contributed to that, and how could it not? Zuck's in a really interesting spot. It seems like he really wants to do the right thing. He seems like a genuinely good person, but also like his product is a pretty intense product.
Yeah. Well, this is from the Wall Street Journal. They spend billions of dollars to like combat like the child porn and the pedophiles and all of that. Billions. It seems like an easier solution than that. But this has been happening for years and years. Somebody called it like an annual flogging. And a lot of, those that were grilling were like, I don't know if anything's going to change, but we're going to keep bringing you back here and flogging. Like Snapchat CEO, TikTok, like it wasn't just Zuckerberg. They were all getting grilled. But it's interesting that they keep coming back, and it seems like there's a bit of a Groundhog Day there. But the numbers are astronomical. The amount of people they flagged and all the tech and safety lanes that they've got, billions and billions of dollars, but it appears that none of it really matters.
Yeah, I don't know. Like these technologies are going to exist. Social media is going to exist. It's like, who do you want to lead them? Obviously, you don't want the government to take them over, and so I'm not really sure what these politicians are even talking about or what they can even do. Right? Most of the time, they're going to screw it up if they try to do something. The one that's weird though is TikTok, owned by China, and pretty popular here in the States and can get messages out and collect a lot of data on Americans. That one's pretty intense.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good Trojan horse.
It's a great Trojan horse.
Yeah, a lot of people
Pretty old
describe
model.
it as it's just Chinese spyware.
Yeah.
But we've got hundreds of millions of people addicted to it. It's tough. It's hard too because I work in social media and there's so much good that comes from it. There's also so much bad. That's another job I would not want. I would not want to be Zuck and have that weight on my shoulders.
I think the challenge for him is what happened yesterday, is the children stuff. And I actually think that's the challenge for the government as well. Like if you're comparing these things to like cigarettes and things like that, and there's age limits on those, how come kids can hop on there and unsupervised have access to, the worst parts of life?
The worst of the worst. It'd be interesting to ask if any of those folks had kids, if their kids were on social media. My guess is most of those folks their kids are not. I don't know if they'd ever be truthful and honest with that.
It'd be like, I highly doubt Mark Zuckerberg's kids has a Facebook account.
Yep.
I bet they're not allowed, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like, when I was reading, I read something about Twitter, and most of the Twitter co-founders, they wouldn't let their kids on social media either. That's pretty telling. That's
Right.
interesting. But I do think, like, what Zuck is really bad at is explaining himself and explaining his values and what he's trying to do. And so I think, like, that gets him in trouble sometimes. We actually had him in 2019 at Silicon Slope Summit. And I asked him about this very thing, and I think we have a clip.
Ooh.
Do we?
The pressure is on the.
Oh my gosh! Can you? Here we go.
There we go.
We started this conversation around the idea that Facebook and something that you said, that it's more important to be understood than liked. What would you have us understand about you, Mark Zuckerberg?
I don't know. I haven't been great about communicating about the company. I am especially bad about communicating about myself. There's an awkwardness to it, right? But I think probably the biggest misperception is, I hope this comes across, but like, I really care about what we're doing, right? The decisions that we make when they're controversial, it's like I didn't get into this because I was trying to build a business or sell a bunch of ads or make money. I happen to think that advertising is a great model so that way you can offer everyone a service for free, because if you want to give every single person in the world a voice, then you want people to be able to afford that. But like for me, this was never about kind of that side of things. And I just think I think some people just assume that every company must only care about that, about making money. And so any kind of policy or any decision must only be motivated by that. Or I think some people might just be kind of willfully ignoring kind of the obvious approach that we take for stuff in order to smear us. But I do just think in general, the principles around empowering individuals, leveling the playing field, giving everyone a voice, not just the powerful people. The powerful people are always going to have a voice, right? It's always the people who are criticizing and saying that more stuff needs to be censored are never the people who are actually at risk of being censored themselves. But they have their ways of getting stuff out. So I don't know, I kind of just feel like someone needs to stand up for giving everyone a voice. Someone needs to stand up for making sure that individual businesses do have the same tools and abilities that larger businesses have. Because at the end of the day, the way that we create an economy and a society that's stable is you want broad-based economic success that comes from small businesses everywhere succeeding, not just a handful of companies. And by the way, that's important for social cohesion too, right? It's like, how many of the small businesses that people build end up being kind of physically the hubs in their communities that help bring people together in addition to supplying jobs, right? So that needs to happen. So I don't know, that's me. That's what I care about.
I love it. So,
what did I ask next? That was exciting. He actually did a pretty good job of explaining himself there. He's
pretty genuine.
Imagine you start Facebook in a dorm room in Harvard. It's about getting women, and all of a sudden you're testifying before Congress about whether a foreign country interfered in an election or what he's talking about up on the Hill yesterday. Like, that is like a shift. Like, this guy is not, who could possibly be able to handle those questions?
No.
Those are hard companies.
Oh, boy,
Yeah.
gosh. And a lot's changed since he was on stage at the Salt Palace, right? Like, his world's changed 2 or 3 times. And he's been in the crosshairs for a long, long time. And I don't think he's going to get out until he's out of the company.
Yeah. Was Twitter there?
Not according to my newsman
I
notes.
bet they were. But Elon is cool and smart that he hired a CEO. I bet his CEO was there. Elon being there would be wild. That is must-see TV.
Oh, yeah.
Jonas, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Yeah.
the stories.
By the way,
Sure.
everybody check out Jonas's podcast, Safely to the Moon. It's all about the Safemoon story and everything we touched on here. Best of luck with everything. Congrats on the success of Gigg, and I'm sure we'll have you back on.
Cool. Sounds
Absolutely.
good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
my friend.
guys.